She had waited 70 years to feel this kind of peace. Soft music, warm laughter, and the glow of people who claimed to love her. But even as Sarah Wilson smiled across the candlelit room, something deep inside her whispered that not all love could be trusted. Welcome to True Voice. If you're watching this, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from. The retirement party was supposed to be her farewell to the working world, a moment to celebrate decades of independence and perseverance. Her son Michael stood beside his wife Jessica, toasting her success, their voices bright and smooth. Yet Sarah noticed the small, tense glance they shared when the champagne was poured. It was fleeting, but sharp enough to slice through her contentment. When Jessica handed her the glass, Sarah's fingers brushed the rim and caught the faintest scent. Not perfume, not wine, but something metallic. She smiled politely, though her pulse quickened. Years in business had taught her how to recognize when someone was lying, and Jessica's eyes were lying now. As everyone raised their glasses, Sarah made a quiet decision. She waited until Jessica looked away, then casually switched their drinks. The first sip burned. Jessica's smile faltered. Moments later, the younger woman's face turned pale. She stumbled, murmuring that she felt dizzy, and the crowd gasped as she fainted. The room erupted in panic, but Sarah stayed calm, the practiced calm of a woman who had seen the truth long before anyone else dared to. That night, when the guests had gone and the paramedics had taken Jessica to the hospital, Sarah sat alone by the dying embers of the fire. She looked down at her untouched glass and whispered to herself, "So it's finally come to this." The next morning, Michael arrived, pale and frantic, insisting his wife had suffered a reaction to medication. But Sarah saw the flicker in his eyes, the quiet fear that she knew more than she was saying. She didn't confront him, not yet. Instead she smiled. "I'll pray she recovers quickly," she said softly. "Family should never have to suffer." Over the next few days, Sarah began to notice the patterns. Michael checking in a little too often, Jessica's mother visiting with nervous smiles, and odd phone calls that stopped when she answered. Her instincts told her this wasn't just betrayal. It was calculation. She began recording everything, every word, every visit. She updated her will, smiling quietly as she signed the papers, knowing the changes would turn their perfect little plan into a nightmare. One evening, Helen Peterson, Jessica's mother, appeared at Sarah's door, trembling. "It's about the other night," she said. "Jessica told me you had a reaction, but Sarah, I don't take any medications. And that champagne. It tasted wrong." Sarah studied her. "What do you remember?" Helen's voice broke. "I think Jessica put something in your glass. I saw her near the drinks table with a small bottle." The truth landed like a storm. Sarah nodded slowly. "She did. But I switched them." Helen's eyes widened. "You mean?" "She poisoned herself," Sarah whispered. "By accident." They sat in silence, two mothers bound by disbelief and shame. "What are you going to do?" Helen asked finally. Sarah's answer was quiet, almost tender. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want, just not the way they expect." Over the next 48 hours, Sarah's calm turned cold and deliberate. She contacted an old friend, Patricia Williams, a private investigator with a reputation for finding what others wanted buried. "I need everything," Sarah said. "Bank accounts, debts, secrets." What Patricia uncovered made Sarah's heart sink. Her son and his wife were drowning. Loans, credit cards, a failing business. And 6 months ago, Jessica had taken out a $500,000 life insurance policy on Sarah. Jessica had claimed caregiver status. The insurer hadn't questioned it. They'd been planning her death for months. The next day, Michael came for lunch, his face bright and eager. "Mom," he said, "Jessica and I found a place for you, Sunset Manor. Safe, quiet, perfect for you." She smiled. "And you'll handle the finances, I suppose?" "Just until you're settled," he said quickly. "Power of attorney, nothing serious." Her smile deepened. "Of course, dear." That night, she drafted her own papers, a power of attorney that looked real but controlled nothing, a trap disguised as trust. When they returned with their forms, she signed everything, calm and warm. Jessica's hands shook as she took the documents. "You've made the right decision," she said. "I'm sure I have," Sarah replied. As they celebrated in her living room, a knock echoed through the house. Two detectives stood at the door. "Mrs. Wilson," one said, "we're investigating an incident involving suspected poisoning at your residence." Jessica's laughter died instantly. Michael went still. "That was my mother," Jessica stammered. "She had a reaction. The toxicology report disagrees," the detective said. "Oleander extract, a deadly poison, found in the champagne served that night." Silence. Then the detective added, "And it appears the glass with the highest concentration was poured for Mrs. Wilson." Jessica's face drained of color. "That's not possible," she whispered. Sarah stood slowly. "Oh, it's possible. In fact, detective, I saw her pour it." Michael's voice broke. "You knew." "I knew everything," Sarah said softly. "The debts, the lies, the insurance policy. And the plan to have me declared incompetent." Jessica's panic shattered into fury. "You think you've won. You've ruined everything." "No," Sarah said, her voice steady. "You ruined yourselves." The officer stepped forward, reading Jessica her rights as the cuffs clicked around her wrists. Michael sank into a chair, stunned. I didn't know she'd actually do it, he whispered. But you knew about the rest, Sarah said. You were ready to take my money, my freedom, my life. He bowed his head, tears falling silently. I thought we were helping you. Helping me disappear, she replied. The truth hung heavy between them. Michael, she added, those papers I gave you, they're fake. You have power of attorney over an account with exactly $1. His face crumpled. You destroyed my life. No, Sarah whispered. You did that yourself. 3 months later, the world had changed. Jessica was in prison. Michael faced his own charges. The house that once held family dinners now belonged to strangers. And Sarah, the woman they'd tried to erase, found peace again. She spent her mornings tending her garden, her evenings with a glass of wine, and her nights in quiet reflection. She had learned that survival wasn't just about living, it was about outsmarting those who mistake kindness for weakness. But peace is fragile. One afternoon, as she watered her roses, a car pulled into her driveway. She recognized the driver immediately. Her granddaughter, Emma, now 16, stepping out with a hesitant smile. Grandma, she said softly, I found something in Mom's old things. Something you should see. Sarah's hand froze midair. What is it, sweetheart? Emma looked down, her voice trembling. It's a letter, addressed to you. Dated the day before the poisoning. Sarah's heart stopped. The garden fell silent. The air turned heavy with memory. Bring it inside, she said, her voice calm but tight. Emma handed her the envelope. Inside, one line was written in Jessica's familiar cursive. If you're reading this, it means I failed. But you need to know, it wasn't just me. Sarah looked up, her pulse hammering, as the faint sound of a car engine idling reached her ears. Someone was watching. Someone who knew. The past, it seemed, wasn't done with her yet. Sarah stood at the window, the letter trembling between her fingers. The handwriting was unmistakable. Jessica's looping, confident script, but the words carried a weight she didn't understand. It wasn't just me. Outside, the car that had been idling was gone, leaving only the faint tracks in the gravel. Inside, the silence pressed against her like a question she couldn't yet answer. She reread the letter, her mind unraveling every word. Jessica had been cruel, yes, but not stupid. She wouldn't have written this unless she'd meant it. Who else? Sarah whispered. Who were you protecting? Her thoughts turned to the months before the retirement party. Strange phone calls, missing mail, the sudden urgency from Michael and Jessica to secure her future. Maybe there was someone else pulling the strings. Someone even closer. Later that evening, she called Patricia, her investigator friend. I need you to trace every transaction Jessica made in the last 6 months, Sarah said. Especially the ones that connect to Michael. Patricia hesitated. You think someone paid her? I think someone used her, Sarah replied. And I want to know who. While Patricia worked, Sarah stayed with Emma. The girl's presence softened the house again. Her laughter, her questions, her quiet loyalty. But even Emma noticed her grandmother's unease. Grandma, she said one evening, were you and Mom ever friends? Sarah smiled faintly. Once. Before greed taught her to speak louder than love. Few days later, Patricia called back. You were right, she said. Jessica made 2 large withdrawals, cash. But not for shopping or bills. The account she sent the money to, both trace back to an offshore fund. Guess whose name is on it? Michael's. No. Yours. Sarah froze. Mine. It's a forged account, Patricia explained. Looks legitimate, but it's designed to make it seem like you were moving money illegally. Money laundering may be fraud. Sarah's stomach dropped. So if Jessica died that night, you'd be the one accused of funding it, Patricia finished. They were setting you up. The truth twisted through Sarah like cold iron. Jessica hadn't acted alone. Someone had planned every move, every signature, every fake document. And now, even after everything, the plan was still in motion. That night, Sarah sat in her living room, the lights dimmed, her old documents spread across the table. Bank statements, emails, insurance papers. She found it. A letter from her accountant dated 2 months before the party, approving an investment she'd never made. The signature was hers, or close to it. Michael, she whispered. He'd forged her signature. He'd orchestrated the entire scheme, using Jessica as a pawn. The realization broke something inside her. Not anger, not sorrow, but a deep exhaustion. She'd spent a lifetime giving him everything, and he'd returned it in poison and deceit. The next morning, she went to the police station. Detective Howard, the same one who arrested Jessica, met her in his office. Mrs. Wilson, he said, I've been expecting you. You know, we've been tracing the accounts. Your son's name came up. But we need evidence, something solid to prove intent. Sarah reached into her bag and handed him the forged signature. Would this help? His eyebrows lifted. That's a start. We'll open a case. As she left, the air outside felt lighter. But peace never stays long. When she returned home, the front door was open. Her chest tightened. Emma, she called out. No answer. The silence felt wrong. On the kitchen counter, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You should have left it alone. Now you'll lose more than money. Her heart pounded. She ran through the house calling for Emma, but only the echo of her voice replied. Then she saw it, on the table next to the empty teacup. Bracelet. Emma's bracelet. The one with the small silver charm she never took off. Sarah's breath caught. A shadow moved outside near the fence. She stepped toward the window, pulse racing, and there, half hidden by the trees, stood Michael. He looked thinner, desperate. His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw no guilt, only resolve. He mouthed something she could barely read through the glass. You took everything. Then he turned and disappeared into the dark. Sarah clutched the bracelet, trembling. The phone buzzed again. Another message. If you want her back, come to where it all began. The retirement venue. The same hall where Jessica had tried to end her life, and Sarah's. The clock ticked past midnight. She stood at the doorway, staring into the night, the letter from Jessica still in her pocket. The truth was no longer about money or betrayal. It was about blood. About the pieces of herself she still refused to lose. Sarah took a deep breath, locked the door behind her, and walked into the night. The rain began to fall, slow and cold. The past wasn't done with her, and this time it had taken something she couldn't replace. The rain came down in thin, steady sheets as Sarah drove through the empty streets, headlights slicing through the mist. The city looked unfamiliar in the dark, shadows where memories used to live. Her hands were steady on the wheel, but her mind pulsed with one thought, Emma. Every sound, every flash of lightning, felt like time slipping away. When she reached the old retirement venue, the building stood silent, its windows black, the closed for renovation sign swaying in the wind. Sarah parked and stepped out, her umbrella forgotten. The air smelled of wet concrete and ghosted perfume, echoes of the night everything had gone wrong. She pushed open the front door, and it groaned as if reluctant to let her in. The power was out, but faint emergency lights glowed along the hallway. She followed them down the corridor, her footsteps soft against the polished floor. Emma, her voice trembled. Sweetheart, if you can hear me, it's Grandma. Silence. Then a creak upstairs. Sarah's breath hitched. She climbed slowly, her heart pounding, and when she reached the landing she saw it. A single light flickering under the banquet hall door. He pushed it open. The hall was transformed. Tables were covered in white cloths again, candles lit, glasses neatly arranged, as if another celebration was about to begin. And standing at the center of it all was Michael. You came, he said softly. His voice was calm, too calm. Where is she? Sarah demanded. Safe, he replied, motioning to the small figure seated near the stage. Emma, hands tied loosely, eyes wide but unharmed. I wouldn't hurt her, he said. I'm not that cruel. But I needed you to listen. You forged my name, stole my money, ruined my life. And you call that not cruel? Sarah's voice cracked with disbelief. Michael's jaw tightened. You think I wanted this? I built everything because of you. You controlled every part of my life. The house, the business, the legacy. You left me nothing but your shadow. So you took mine, Sarah whispered. You destroyed your family. No, he said. You did. When you left Dad's company to me, it wasn't a gift. It was a curse. He was in debt, wasn't he? You hid that. You let me inherit the mess and called it a future. Sarah froze. Her throat went dry. He wasn't wrong. Her husband's death had left more than grief. Had left secrets. I tried to fix it, she said quietly. I tried to protect you. By letting Jessica take the fall. Michael's eyes flashed with anger. She loved me, Mom. And when she told me you switched the glasses, I realized. You didn't save her. You wanted her gone. Sarah stepped closer, voice trembling. I switched the glasses because I saw her pour something in mine. It was never about revenge. It was about surviving. Michael looked away, his breathing uneven. I don't know what to believe anymore. Then look at me, she said. You're my son. Believe that I would never hurt you or Emma. He turned slowly, and in his eyes she saw not a monster, but a man undone by years of resentment and lies. I wanted to end it tonight, he said. To make you feel what I felt. And what stopped you, she asked. His gaze shifted to Emma. She said you still keep her drawings on the fridge. His voice broke. That you make her pancakes in the shape of hearts. I thought. Maybe there's still a piece of you left that isn't made of control. Sarah exhaled shakily. There is. And it's the part that still loves you, even now. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Michael reached into his pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. This, he said, is everything. The accounts, the forged documents, the people behind the setup. They used Jessica, used me. They'll come for both of us now. Then we face them together, Sarah said. But before she could reach him, a gunshot shattered the air. The sound was sharp, final, coming from the balcony above. Sarah dropped to her knees, covering Emma. Michael staggered, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming through his sleeve. From the shadows above, a figure stepped into view. Detective Howard. His face was calm, cold, wrong. You should have stopped digging, Mrs. Wilson, he said. This was never about family. It was about the people who built your husband's empire. The same ones who paid me to keep it quiet. Sarah's mind spun. You're part of this. I've been part of it since the beginning, Howard said. And now, you and your son are liabilities. He raised his gun again, but Michael lunged, shoving Sarah and Emma to the ground. The weapon clattered to the floor, sliding across the marble. In the chaos, Sarah grabbed it, hands trembling. She pointed it at Howard. Don't, he warned. You're not a killer. Her voice steadied. No, but I am a mother. The gun fired. A warning shot that shattered the chandelier above, raining glass and light between them. Howard flinched, then bolted for the exit. The echo of his footsteps faded into the night. Sarah dropped the gun, rushing to Michael's side. Stay with me, she pleaded. His voice was faint. Mom. You have to finish it. He pressed the flash drive into her hand, blood smearing her palm. Expose them. End this. His eyes closed, but his pulse still fluttered beneath her touch. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real this time, growing louder. Sarah held him close, tears mixing with rain. She looked at Emma, who clung to her arm, whispering, Grandma, is he going to be okay? Sarah swallowed hard. He has to be. Outside, blue and red lights flashed against the building once again. But this time, Sarah wasn't the one being saved. She was the one carrying the truth. Yet even as the officers rushed in, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Someone had orchestrated every step. Someone who had been waiting for this very outcome. As they lifted Michael onto a stretcher, Sarah glanced down and saw something glinting near the shattered glass. Phone still recording. Its screen showed a message, unsent. Phase 2 is complete. Proceed with her. Sarah's breath caught. She turned slowly toward the window, where the storm had cleared to a pale dawn. Somewhere out there, someone was still pulling the strings. And Sarah wasn't done fighting. Morning light crept through the blinds, soft and golden, yet Sarah couldn't feel its warmth. Her hands trembled slightly as she stirred her coffee, eyes fixed on the sealed folder Detective Howard had left behind. Phase 2, he'd said, but what was Phase 1 supposed to be? And why did her own retirement party feel more like a setup than a celebration? The laughter from that night echoed in her memory, hollow now. Every smile, every toast, every compliment from Emily, all poisoned by suspicion. She opened the folder slowly. Inside, she found photocopies of documents stamped with her name. Her signature, even her handwriting. A property transfer, dated 3 weeks before the party. But she'd never signed anything. Her heart began to race. She picked up her phone and called the one person she could still trust. Margaret Holt, a retired notary who'd been her best friend since their days at the firm. Margaret, I need you to look at something, she said, trying to steady her voice. Within the hour, they sat together in Margaret's study, old paper smell filling the air as her friend examined the signatures under a magnifying glass. Sarah, she said softly, this isn't your signature. Someone copied it, traced it, maybe even lifted it from an old file. Sarah exhaled slowly, disbelief turning to icy resolve. Then someone wants my assets transferred. Quietly. Margaret nodded. The document lists a new executive director for Riverside Holdings. Sarah leaned in, scanning the name Emily Rhodes, her daughter-in-law. For a moment everything stopped. The laughter at the party, the clinking of glasses, the strange way Emily had insisted on pouring her drink. It all made sense now. The drink wasn't meant to hurt her. It was meant to weaken her, to make her compliant, easy to sign, easy to forget. Her retirement party was never a celebration. It was a smokescreen to close a deal she didn't authorize. Sarah stood from the table, a storm rising behind her calm expression. Margaret, I need those copies sealed. If she wants a game, we'll play it her way, but I'll be the one dealing the cards. That afternoon she returned home, her heart steady but sharp. The house felt different now, quieter, colder. On her desk sat a bouquet of lilies with a small note tucked inside. For new chapter, love, Emily. The sweetness of the handwriting twisted like irony in her chest. She reached for her phone to call her son but stopped halfway. No, not yet. She needed proof, not emotion. Hours passed. The sun sank, leaving the house bathed in the gold of early dusk. Sarah turned on her old computer, pulling up archived emails from the firm. Most were routine, congratulations, old correspondences, until she found one dated the morning after her party. It was from Emily's private account. The subject line, final approval received. Proceed with transfer by end of week. Her throat tightened. The message was signed R, but there was another line below it, faint, encrypted text, and one name she hadn't seen in years. J. Holt. Her late husband's former business partner. She stared at it, pulse quickening. If Emily was working with Holt, this wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. The company her husband built, the life they'd poured into, was being rewritten under her nose. Sarah saved the email and backed up every file to a flash drive. Then her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Silence, then a distorted voice. You were never meant to wake up that night. Her hand went cold. The call cut off before she could speak. For the first time, Sarah felt something she hadn't in years. Not fear, but a clarity that burned through it. Someone had underestimated her. Someone thought age made her fragile. But they'd forgotten one thing. Sarah Lane didn't crumble under pressure. She studied it. She learned from it. And when she struck back, she never missed. She closed her laptop and whispered into the quiet. If they wanted a war, they just got one. Outside, the streetlights flickered to life. The same soft glow reflected in her determined eyes. Somewhere in the distance, a car idled for a moment, then slowly drove away. Sarah turned off the light. Tomorrow she would start digging. But tonight, she let the silence settle, because the real party hadn't even begun. The next morning, Sarah woke to the hum of rain tapping against her window. The world outside felt muted, wrapped in silver mist. Calm, deceptive, much like Emily's voice the night she said, "You've earned your rest." Those words haunted her now. Because rest was the last thing they wanted for her. Sarah dressed simply. A cream cardigan, soft blue blouse, the same one she wore the day she handed Emily her first company badge. Back then, she'd believed she was welcoming family. Now she was preparing for battle. When she arrived at the firm, the receptionist smiled nervously, as if sensing something was off. "Mrs. Lane, I wasn't told you were coming." Sarah gave a polite nod. That's because no one needed to. She walked through the glass doors into the conference room, and there they were. Emily, poised in a navy suit, sitting at the head of the table. And across from her, two men in suits. One of them, Jonathan Holt. Older now, grayer but unmistakable. The man her late husband had once called brother. Emily's smile faltered when she saw her. "Sarah, we didn't expect." "You never do," Sarah interrupted softly. Her voice was steady, controlled, every word measured. "I see the company's board has changed. Without my consent." Emily straightened. "You retired." The papers were signed. Sarah placed the folder on the table and slid it forward. "No, Emily. They were forged. By someone who thought I wouldn't notice." A tense silence filled the room. Jonathan glanced between them, his jaw tight. "Sarah, this doesn't concern you anymore. The transition was built on fraud," she finished. "And I have every document to prove it." Emily tried to laugh, a brittle sound. "You're confused. Maybe it's the stress or your memory." Sarah leaned closer, her eyes sharp. "My memory built this company, Emily. It remembers every face I hired, every deal I signed, and every lie you whispered to my son." That last line landed hard. Emily's composure cracked, just for a moment. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "I did this for him. He's drowning in debt. If the transfer went through, we'd both be free." Sarah blinked, stunned. "You mean he knew?" Emily looked away, her silence answering the question. The betrayal stung deeper than she imagined. Her son, her only child, knew. Sarah took a slow breath, voice trembling just slightly. "I would have given you everything, Emily. All you had to do was ask. But instead you poisoned my drink. You forged my name. You turned my own son against me." Emily's eyes filled, but her tears were hollow. "You wouldn't have understood." "No," Sarah whispered. "You wouldn't have waited." The room fell still. The only sound was the rain against the glass, steady and relentless, like a heartbeat. Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out the flash drive. "This holds every copy. Every email, every document, every trace of your scheme. I'm giving you one chance, Emily. Walk away now, or I'll bring it all down." Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. "And if I don't?" Sarah smiled faintly, the kind of smile that came from power, not cruelty. "Then I stop protecting my son." For the first time, fear flickered in Emily's eyes. She turned to Jonathan, desperate for help, but he was already standing, pale and silent. "She's not bluffing," he muttered. "She never has." Sarah gathered her things, rising with quiet dignity. "You both forgot who taught you the game." She turned to leave, but just as her hand touched the door, Emily's voice broke through, trembling. "Sarah, wait." Sarah paused. "Why should I?" Emily's eyes glistened. "Because your son isn't the one who planned it. Him. And he doesn't know about what's next." Sarah froze. The tone in Emily's voice wasn't defiance anymore. It was warning. "What's next?" she asked. Emily lowered her gaze. "They're coming for the trust. For the house. You're not safe." A chill ran through Sarah's spine. "Who's they?" Emily looked up slowly, eyes filled with regret. "You'll find out soon. Just don't be home tonight." The rain outside grew heavier, drowning out the sound of Sarah's heartbeat. She turned toward the window and saw a black car parked across the street, engine still running. She didn't know who was inside, but she knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over. Not yet. That evening, the sky hung low, heavy with thunderclouds, the kind that seemed to hold their breath before the storm. Sarah sat by the window of her home, the one her late husband had built stone by stone. The lights inside were dim, shadows dancing against the walls. Every creak, every whisper of wind felt louder than usual. She remembered Emily's voice echoing in her head. "Don't be home tonight." But leaving wasn't in Sarah's nature. Not after everything they'd taken from her. Not when she finally knew the truth. She poured herself tea, steady hands betraying no fear, though her heart raced quietly beneath her calm exterior. The flash drive sat beside her on the table, the same one that held the evidence. It looked small, harmless, but it was the reason the world she built was now crumbling around her. Side, a car door slammed. Then another. Sarah's fingers tightened around her cup. She didn't move, not yet. Through the lace curtains, she saw two figures walking up her driveway. Black coats, umbrellas shielding their faces from the rain. They weren't here for conversation. A flicker of lightning flashed across the window, revealing one face. Jonathan Holt. The other she didn't recognize. Sarah rose quietly, set her teacup down, and reached for the photo on the mantel. Her late husband smiling beside her. She whispered, "You said they'd never dare step foot in this house." Then she straightened her shoulders and turned toward the door. 3 knocks, firm, deliberate. She didn't answer. Then a voice, Jonathan's. "Come cold. Sarah, we just want to talk." She almost laughed. The last time he'd said that, he'd signed away half her company. She stepped closer, voice steady. "Then speak from there." Then another knock. Harder this time. "You have something that doesn't belong to you." Sarah's lips curved into a faint smile. "You mean the evidence of your crimes?" Thunder rolled in the distance. "Careful, Sarah," Jonathan warned. "You're playing a dangerous game." "I taught you this game," she replied. "And I never lose twice." Silence. Then a sudden crash. The front lock gave way. The men stepped inside, dripping rain onto her hardwood floor. The younger one moved fast, searching, while Jonathan stood still, watching her like a man who knew he'd already lost but refused to admit it. "Where is it?" he demanded. Sarah's voice softened. "Safe. With someone who won't hesitate to go public if I don't check in by midnight." Jonathan's face hardened. "You wouldn't. Try me." He took a step forward, but then something unexpected happened. The younger man's phone buzzed. He looked down, frowning. "Sir, it's the office. They're saying the files went live." Jonathan's head snapped toward him. "What?" Sarah's expression didn't change. "You see, Jonathan, I don't wait for midnight. I plan ahead." Lightning flared again, and for a moment the whole room lit up. Sarah standing tall, calm amid the chaos, and Jonathan's mask of arrogance finally cracking. He turned to the door, fury and panic twisting his voice. "You'll regret this, Sarah." She didn't flinch. "No, Jonathan. You'll remember it." The door slammed behind them. The rain swallowed their footsteps, fading into the distance. Sarah stood still for a long time, the storm now easing into a soft drizzle. She looked down at the photo of her husband again. "It's done," she whispered. "It's finally done." But as she turned back toward the table, she froze. Her teacup, the one she had poured earlier, was empty. She hadn't touched it. And yet, someone had. Her breath caught. Slowly, she picked it up. Faint lipstick on the rim, not hers. Emily's. Sarah's pulse quickened. She rushed to the back door, opened it. The rain had washed away all traces, but a single white envelope lay on the porch. Her name written in delicate cursive. She opened it. Inside, a single note. "You weren't supposed to drink it. But now, someone else did." Sarah's hand trembled. Her mind raced. Who had been here before the men arrived? Then her phone buzzed. Message. Unknown number. It read, "Check on your son." The world fell silent around her. She dropped the note and ran into the storm. Her car's headlights cut through the rain as she sped toward the city, heart pounding, every second an eternity. Because no matter how strong she'd been, no matter how much revenge she'd planned, nothing could have prepared her for this. She thought she was the one protecting him. But maybe she'd just been lured into the next trap. The rain hadn't stopped when Sarah reached her son's house. It poured down in silver sheets, blurring the world outside her windshield. Her heart thudded like a second storm. She barely remembered stopping the car, barely felt the chill when she stepped into the night. She just ran. The front door was unlocked. That alone made her stomach twist. "Daniel," she called softly. No answer. The lights inside were dim. Only the glow from the hallway lamp flickered faintly, like a heartbeat fading. She stepped in slowly. The air smelled faintly of medicine and something else, something sharp. Her heels clicked quietly across the floor until she reached the living room. There on the sofa sat Daniel, her son, his head in his hands, trembling. "Daniel," she whispered again. He looked up. His face was pale, eyes red, a glass of water untouched beside him. On the table lay an empty cup, familiar, delicate, the kind from her own kitchen set. "Mom," his voice cracked. "You weren't supposed to come." Sarah's throat tightened. "What happened? What's wrong?" He didn't answer, just gestured toward the floor. There, near his feet, was the same kind of cup she'd found at her house, same faint lipstick mark. Emily's. Sarah's breath caught. "Daniel, where is she?" He shook his head slowly, as though even the air was too heavy to move. "Gone. She left before I woke up. Said she was sorry. Said she didn't mean for it to go this far." Sarah's chest ached. "She was here." He nodded. "She came after the party. Said you'd ruined everything." That you were going to take the company back. His eyes filled with tears. She said she just wanted to scare you. But I think He broke off, shaking his head. She said the wrong glass got switched. Silence fell between them, the kind that doesn't need words to explain its weight. Sarah felt the room tilt slightly, her mind piecing it all together. Emily hadn't come to warn her. Not entirely. She'd come to make sure the plan still worked. And somehow, someone else had taken what was meant for her. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the silence like glass. Who was with you, Daniel? He hesitated, eyes flicking toward the closed kitchen door. Sarah moved before he could stop her. She pushed it open and froze. On the counter lay a single plate, a half-eaten slice of cake, and beside it, a woman's phone. Emily's. Sarah turned back. Daniel, what aren't you telling me? Tears slipped down his cheeks. Mom, I didn't know, he whispered. I didn't know she was part of them. Part of who? The investors. The same people who ruined Dad. She said they promised to clear my debts, to keep the company afloat if I helped them get to you. His hands shook as he spoke. I thought I was protecting us. But she used me. She used everything. Sarah stared at him, her son, the boy she'd raised with her whole heart, now caught in the same web that had destroyed everything she once built. Lightning flashed outside, painting his face in cold blue light. She whispered, You let her into our home. I didn't know, he shouted, his voice cracking. She said it was just business. That you'd understand. Sarah stepped closer, her voice trembling but calm. Understand that she tried to poison me. That she destroyed our family. He looked up at her then, eyes full of regret, guilt and something else, fear. She's not done, Mom, he said softly. She said there's more coming. That even if she's gone, they'll finish what she started. Sarah's stomach turned cold. Did she say when? He nodded slowly. Tomorrow. The board meeting. For a moment, neither of them moved. Outside, thunder rolled again, a deep, steady warning from the heavens. Sarah turned toward the window, rain streaking down the glass like falling tears. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but resolute. Then we won't wait for tomorrow. Daniel frowned. What are you going to do? She looked back at him, her expression unreadable. Part sorrow, part fire. What I should have done years ago, she said. End this. She reached for her coat and the flash drive still in her pocket. Evidence. The weapon she never meant to use this way. As she walked toward the door, Daniel called after her. Mom, what if they come for you? Sarah paused, her hand on the handle. They already did. And with that, she stepped out into the storm once more, lightning flashing against her silhouette, rain soaking through her coat, but her steps steady, unwavering. Somewhere, far away, headlights glowed through the rain, a black car following the same road she'd taken before. And inside it, a woman's voice spoke into the darkness. She's moving. With her. She's doing exactly what we need. The driver nodded silently. And as the car disappeared into the mist, the world held its breath again. Because the truth wasn't done revealing itself. It was only getting closer. The next morning broke with the kind of calm that doesn't last. The sky was gray, the city half asleep, the streets slick from last night's rain. But Sarah Rivers was already awake. She stood before the mirror, her reflection steady, her eyes hollow but sharp. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who smiled through toasts and betrayal the night before. This version had nothing left to lose, and everything to prove. By 8:30, she was standing in front of the towering glass building that once bore her name, Rivers and Company, the firm she and her late husband had built from the ground up. A symbol of pride, family, and everything they'd sacrificed. Now it felt like a stranger's monument. She stepped through the lobby, heels clicking against marble. The receptionist looked up, startled, almost whispering, Mrs. Rivers. We weren't expecting. I know, Sarah said quietly, walking past. That's why I'm here. The elevator ride to the top floor was slow, and in that silence, her heart drummed like a warning. The flash drive in her coat pocket felt heavier than gold, heavier than guilt. When the doors opened, she saw them, the board. 12 men and women in suits, faces she'd once trusted. At the head of the table sat a man she'd never seen before. His expression unreadable. And beside him, Emily. Her daughter-in-law turned slowly, a faint smirk curving her lips. Sarah, you look well, considering. Sarah's pulse froze, but her face stayed calm. You shouldn't be here. Emily leaned back in her chair. Oh, I should. Daniel gave me his proxy vote this morning. Poor boy, said he couldn't handle the stress. You raised such a fragile man. The words burned, but Sarah didn't show it. She looked at the boardroom, the same room where her husband once stood, where dreams were once made, and now it was filled with strangers and betrayal. The chairman cleared his throat. Mrs. Rivers, we appreciate your presence, but today's meeting concerns a transition of ownership. The firm has decided to move forward with a new managing director. Sarah's gaze didn't waver. And who might that be? Emily smiled. Me. For a moment, silence. Even the hum of the air conditioner seemed to pause. Sarah looked directly at her. You think this company belongs to you? Emily tilted her head, the picture of practiced calm. It already does. Daniel signed over his shares last night. After all, I am family. Sarah's heart clenched, not in anger but in sorrow. Her son. Her husband's legacy. All of it slipping through deceit. She reached into her coat slowly, pulling out the flash drive, holding it between two fingers. The board's attention shifted instantly. Before you finalize anything, she said softly, you should see this. Emily's expression faltered for the first time. What is that? The truth, Sarah replied. About who really funded this company. And why you're all sitting here today. She plugged the drive into the screen at the end of the room. The monitor flickered, static cutting across the glass, then, a series of files. Wire transfers, confidential memos, shell accounts linking Emily and the chairman to an offshore investor, the same one who destroyed her husband's reputation years ago. Gasps filled the room. The chairman's face went pale. Sarah turned toward Emily. You didn't just marry into this family for love. You were sent here to finish what they started. Emily stood, voice trembling between rage and fear. You don't know what you're talking about. But Sarah stepped closer, her voice calm, almost maternal. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've been watching you. From the moment you looked me in the eye and called me Mom. I saw it. The hunger. The lie. Emily's composure broke. You think you can ruin me with this? Sarah smiled faintly. I don't need to ruin you. You did that yourself. She turned toward the board, the projection behind her showing numbers, names, proof that would end careers. This company was built on truth. My husband died for it. My son nearly lost himself to it. And I won't let it die the same way. The chairman stammered. We'll have to review. Sarah cut him off gently. No, you'll do more than that. You'll resign. All of you who took their money. Or I release everything to the press within the hour. Emily's jaw tightened. You don't have the courage. Sarah looked at her, truly looked. You're wrong. I just ran out of fear. The room went dead silent. Then slowly the chairman stood. This meeting is adjourned. One by one the board members filed out, faces pale, eyes averted. Emily stood alone now, trembling with fury. She hissed. You think you've won? Sarah took a breath, her voice soft but cutting. Winning was never the point. Surviving was. Emily stepped closer, her eyes glinting. You don't understand who you're dealing with. Sarah tilted her head slightly. I understand perfectly. And then, just as Sarah turned to leave, Emily's phone buzzed. A single message lit up the screen, one line that made her freeze. She knows. Clean it up. Emily's eyes darted toward the window, panic flickering for the first time. Sarah caught the look and paused. Who sent that? Emily swallowed hard, words stuck in her throat. But before she could answer, a shadow moved behind the frosted glass door. A man's silhouette. Butching. Sarah's breath caught. The handle turned slowly. Emily whispered. It's too late. The door opened, and everything went silent. The door swung open, and for a heartbeat, time itself seemed to pause. The man who stepped through wasn't a stranger. He was a ghost wearing skin. Michael Rivers. Her husband's brother. The one everyone said died 10 years ago in that supposed accident. But there he was, alive, unchanged except for the frost in his eyes. Emily's breath hitched. You said you wouldn't. Michael raised a hand, silencing her. You talk too much. Then his gaze shifted to Sarah. Hello, sister-in-law. Sarah didn't move. Her nails bit into her palm, but her voice came out steady. You're supposed to be dead. Michael smirked. You're supposed to be retired. Yet here we are. He walked further into the room, slow, deliberate. The smell of rain still clung to his coat, and when he spoke again, it was calm, too calm. You always were the clever one. I told them you'd find it. The drive. The files. The truth. Sarah's stomach tightened. You're the one who sent her. Michael glanced at Emily, who stood pale and trembling. She played her part well, until she started believing she could outsmart me. He turned back toward Sarah. But you've always been my unfinished business. The air thickened. Sarah felt her heart racing, not from fear, but from the sudden weight of realization. You were behind the collapse. The shell accounts. The bribes. It wasn't just the firm, it was the family. Michael's lips curved. Someone had to make use of what your husband left behind. He trusted too easily. Died too cleanly. He paused, eyes flicking to the boardroom table. But you're made of something stronger. That's why I liked you. Emily whispered. Michael, please, we had a deal. He turned sharply, his tone slicing the air. The deal changed the moment she opened that drive. Sarah's mind raced. Flash drive. Files. The warning from her husband's letter. They'll come for you next if they think you still have them. He wasn't talking about strangers. He meant him. Sarah stepped back slightly, the soft click of her heel echoing like a countdown. You killed him, didn't you? Michael tilted his head, that ghost of a smile never leaving. He made it easy. For a moment, the rain outside seemed to fall harder, as though the world itself recoiled. Sarah's throat tightened, but her eyes never left his. You destroyed your own brother. Michael's expression darkened. He destroyed himself the day he chose you over the company. He thought love would save him. It didn't. He leaned forward. And neither will it save you. Emily took a shaky step forward. Michael, stop. She's not the enemy. But Michael's look silenced her. You think you matter in this. You were bait. And now your usefulness is over. That was enough. Sarah moved, quick, quiet, precise, pulling the key fob from her pocket. She pressed the panic button. The boardroom doors locked automatically, a security feature her husband had installed years ago. Michael's eyes snapped to the door. What did you do? Sarah's voice was low, steady. You built this company on lies. My husband died protecting the truth. You came here thinking I was still the woman who smiled through betrayal. But you were wrong. She took a step closer. I didn't just find the truth, Michael. I sent it. He froze. Sent it. She nodded slowly. To every major news outlet in the city. To the Department of Justice. And to the shareholders you betrayed. Right now, as we stand here, your name is spreading like wildfire. Michael's jaw clenched. The calm in his face cracked for the first time. You think that will stop me? Sarah met his gaze, her voice soft but lethal. No. I think it already did. Outside the building, sirens began to wail. Faint at first, then louder. The kind of sound that means the past has finally caught up. Emily backed away, tears streaming silently. Sarah, I didn't know. He said it was just business. Sarah looked at her tone softer now. Then learn this, Emily. When you choose silence, you choose sides. Michael turned toward the window. Flashing lights now visible below. His reflection in the glass looked smaller than she remembered. Older, desperate. You don't understand, Sarah. You're not safe either. They'll come for you. Sarah straightened, her silhouette framed by the rising dawn. Let them come. The door burst open behind them. Officers shouting, their voices sharp against the morning calm. Michael stepped back, but it was too late. Two men in suits rushed in, grabbing him by the arms. His voice was low, almost pleading. You'll regret this. Sarah's answer was quiet, almost tender. Maybe. But at least I'll sleep tonight. They led him away, the echo of footsteps fading down the hall. The boardroom fell silent again, empty except for Sarah and Emily. Emily whispered. It's over, isn't it? Sarah looked out the window, where the sun had begun to break through the clouds. No, she said softly. It's just beginning. Because somewhere far below, parked near the curb, a black sedan waited. Inside, a man in a dark coat lifted his phone, watching the glass tower above. She did it, he said into the receiver. Just like we planned. The voice on the other end replied, calm and cold. Good. Now we move to phase 2. The man hung up, started the engine, and disappeared into traffic. And in her office above, Sarah Rivers turned from the window, unaware that the next storm had already begun to form. For a week after Michael's arrest, the world felt almost still. Reporters flooded the news. The firm's name trended everywhere. Headlines screamed of corruption, fraud, betrayal, and beneath it all, one quiet truth emerged. Sarah Rivers had survived. Her face was on the front page. Widow exposes decade of lies. People called her brave. But in the silence of her apartment, bravery felt like another word for loneliness. Every night, she replayed that final moment. Michael's face as they dragged him away, the sound of his voice echoing in her mind. You're not safe either. First, she thought it was just another threat. But then, small things began to shift. Her phone would light up at odd hours. Calls with no number, no sound. Her mail began to arrive already opened. And one morning when she started her car, the radio turned on by itself, whispering static that almost sounded like a voice. That's when she realized. She wasn't imagining it. Someone was still watching. Emily had vanished days after the arrest. No calls, no messages, no trace. Her apartment was cleared out, as if she had never lived there. The police told Sarah not to worry, that Emily might have skipped town to avoid questioning. But Sarah knew better. People like Emily didn't disappear. They were removed. One evening, as rain washed against the city windows, Sarah sat by her kitchen table, staring at the envelope she found slipped under her door. No name. No stamp. Just one sentence inside, printed in perfect block letters. You opened one door. Don't open the next. She folded it slowly, her breath trembling. Then she noticed something else. A faint watermark in the corner of the paper. A logo she hadn't seen in years. Her husband's old company. Rivers Global Investments. That logo shouldn't exist anymore. The company had been dissolved after his death. But now it was back like a ghost wearing a mask. She drove to the old office that night. The building was dark, abandoned, its windows clouded with dust. But on the top floor, one light still burned. The elevator creaked as it rose, stopping with a low hum. The hallway was silent, except for the faint hum of electricity and the drip of rain from a cracked ceiling. When she reached the door marked Executive Suite, she paused. The light beneath it flickered, and a shadow moved. Who's there? She called softly. No answer. She pushed the door open. The office looked untouched, frozen in time. Her husband's desk, his leather chair, the framed photo of them still sitting on the shelf, everything as it had been the day before he died. Only one thing was new. The computer screen was on. A video file blinked in the center. Play me. Her hands shook as she clicked. The screen flickered, and then her husband's face appeared. Live, breathing, speaking. Sarah. His voice trembled, as though recorded in haste. If you're seeing this, they've reached Michael. But he isn't the end. He's just the surface. The real threat is inside the company. Inside Rivers Global. Her throat tightened. You're supposed to be dead, she whispered to the screen. Her husband's eyes seemed to look right through her. Trust no one, Sarah. Not the board. Not the police. And not. The video glitched. A sharp burst of static drowned the sound. Then, for half a second, another face appeared in the reflection behind him. Blurred but familiar. It wasn't Michael. It was Emily. Sarah's heart stopped. The screen went black. She stood there frozen, the hum of the computer filling the silence. Then a new sound. A step. Low. Coming from the hallway behind her. She turned. The door she came through was closing, slowly on its own. A voice whispered from the dark, soft and cold. You weren't supposed to find that. It was a woman's voice. Sarah stepped back, her pulse hammering. Emily. A figure stepped out from the shadows, hair damp from the rain, a faint scar glinting beneath her left eye. Hello, Sarah, Emily said, her smile brittle. You should have stopped when you won. Sarah's breath caught. What did you do? Emily tilted her head, eyes calm. You really thought Michael was in charge? She laughed, a low, hollow sound. He worked for me. The room spun. You planned all of this. Emily nodded. You were never supposed to drink that night. It was. But when you switched glasses, her tone darkened. You ruined everything. And now I have to clean up your mess. Sarah's eyes flicked toward the window. Rain poured down in silver streaks. Below, distant sirens wailed, too far away. She turned back slowly. You'll never get away with this. Emily smiled faintly. Oh, I already did. A click echoed in the room, the sound of a door locking from the outside. Then the lights went out. Only the computer screen remained, glowing with one final line of text. Phase 2, activated. Sarah reached for the desk, but before she could move, a sharp scent filled the air. Something chemical. Her knees weakened. The edges of the room blurred. Emily's voice faded through the haze. Goodbye, Sarah. Then darkness swallowed everything. Silence. Then the sound of breathing. Low, shallow, struggling. When Sarah opened her eyes, the world was blurry. The ceiling above her was white, too white, with sterile lights humming faintly like the wings of trapped insects. Her wrists ached. Cold metal pressed against her skin. Handcuffs. For a moment she couldn't move. Couldn't even think. Then the memories hit her like glass breaking. Emily's voice, the chemical smell, the word activated. He tried to sit up. The bed was hospital grade, but the room wasn't. The walls were concrete, unpainted. A small window at the top showed nothing but faint gray light. It wasn't a hospital. It was a facility. On the bedside table, a small tray held a cup of water, a folded napkin, and a note written in perfect cursive. You were never supposed to wake up. Her pulse quickened. Sarah scanned the room. A camera in the corner, a faint red light blinking. Someone was watching. She turned her face away, forcing calm into her trembling hands. Every breath tasted of antiseptic and fear. But fear was something she had learned to master. She slipped her wrist carefully through the metal cuff, testing its strength. It was tight but not impossible. She'd escaped worse cages before. Then she heard it. Faint footsteps echoing down the corridor. Two voices. One male, one female. She's stable, the man said. For now, replied the woman. But if she remembers too much, we'll have to start over. The footsteps stopped outside her door. Keys jingled. Sarah closed her eyes and let her body go limp. The door creaked open. Vitals are steady, said the man, leaning close to check her pulse. Maybe the dose wasn't enough. She doesn't need another, the woman replied coldly. She won't survive too. Sarah waited until they turned to leave. Then, with one sharp twist, she pulled free from the loosened cuff. It scraped her wrist raw, but it worked. She moved fast. Silently. She reached for the tray, grabbed the metal spoon, and slipped it into her sleeve. Her escape weapon. Her proof that she was still alive. The door clicked shut again. She waited. Counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. Then she stood and moved to the camera. Emily, she whispered, looking directly into the red light. You should have finished it when you had the chance. And then, she swung the spoon, smashing the lens clean. The light went dark. For the first time in hours, the room was hers. 15 minutes later, Sarah walked barefoot down a dim hallway. Her hospital gown brushing against her legs. Doors lined the corridor, each with a number, each silent. She peered through one small window. Her heart froze. Inside, a woman about her age sat staring blankly at a wall, hooked to 4 lines. Her eyes were open but empty. And beside her bed, a file read, Phase 2, Subject 06. Sarah stepped back. Her file must have said Subject 07. That's when she realized. She wasn't a patient. She was a project, a distant sound, an alarm. She turned and ran. The corridor twisted, turned, opened into a wide room filled with flickering monitors. Each screen showed data, names, charts, Rivers Global. And there, in the center, stood a terminal logged into a system called Phase 2 Control. Her husband's face appeared again on one of the looping screens. This time, his voice was clear. Sarah, if you found this, then you're part of it now. I built this to stop them, but they took it. They turned it into something else. You need to shut it down before. The screen glitched, then went black. Another sound filled the room, a mechanical hiss. The door behind her sealed automatically. And from the speakers above, a voice she knew all too well said, Welcome back, Sarah. Emily. Sarah turned slowly. A wall panel slid open, revealing a glass observation room on the other side. Emily stood inside, calm and smiling, wearing a pristine lab coat. Behind her, screens displayed Sarah's face from multiple angles, recorded footage from every move she'd made since waking. You didn't think I'd leave you unsupervised, did you? Emily's voice was soft, almost kind. This was all your husband's idea. The system, the test subjects, the trials. I just perfected it. Sarah's eyes burned with disbelief. He tried to stop you. Emily tilted her head. He tried to stop me because I was better. He didn't want you to know he used people, their memories, their minds. That's what Phase 2 is. Controlled recall. Rewrite the past. Sarah's hands trembled. You're lying. Emily smiled faintly. Aren't you curious, Sarah? Why your husband's video still updates? Why he's still sending messages? She gestured toward the main screen, and suddenly the video feed changed. Her husband appeared again. But this time he was looking directly at the camera. Sarah, he said slowly, almost whispering. If you're seeing this, she's standing right behind you. Sarah froze. Emily's reflection shimmered faintly on the glass. Her voice, calm, soft, came again. You see, even in death, he still works for me. Sarah turned sharply, and that's when she noticed something. The control terminal still open. One blinking command waiting for confirmation. Execute memory reset. Subject 08. Emily. A faint spark of hope flickered in her eyes. Emily followed her gaze. Too late. Sarah's finger hit enter. The room exploded in alarms. Lights flashed red. Emily screamed, a sound torn between rage and fear, as the glass cracked around her. Sarah backed away, chest heaving. And then silence. All screens went dark. Only one line remained glowing in green across every monitor. Memory reset complete. Sarah's voice trembled as she whispered to the empty room. You taught me how to survive, Emily. You should have taught me when to stop. But before she could move, one final screen flickered to life behind her. Her husband's voice returned, soft and cold. Sarah, if you're hearing this, you've done what I couldn't. But you've also set something free. The lights began to flicker again. And behind her, the locked doors slowly began to open, one by one, each leading to a subject room, each no longer silent. The morning light spilled through the blinds in fractured gold, touching Sarah's face as she sat by the window. The world outside was calm, too calm for what had just unraveled. On the table beside her lay the letter, the glass vial, and the watch she'd worn the night of her retirement party. All relics of a night that had changed everything. Emily had confessed. The recording Sarah secretly kept on her phone had captured every word, every trembling admission. How she and Mark had planned to frame her. How the drink wasn't meant to kill but to incapacitate, long enough to force her signature on the trust papers. But the switch had ruined everything. Emily was gone now, escorted out of their lives not by anger, but by the quiet weight of truth. Sarah stood, walking slowly through her house, each creak of the floor a reminder of the years she'd built there. The same walls that once held laughter now carried echoes of betrayal, but also of survival. She stopped by a framed photo. Her husband, smiling in the garden, his arm around her younger self. For a moment, she almost reached out to touch the glass. I forgave you, she whispered softly. But I won't forget what you left behind. Outside, a car pulled into the driveway. Mark stepped out. His face pale, shoulders sagging under the weight of the scandal that had destroyed his marriage and reputation. He looked older now, worn. He paused when he saw Sarah at the door. I lost everything, he said quietly. Sarah's voice was calm. No, Mark. You just learned what everything really is. He looked down, ashamed. I didn't know what she planned. I swear I didn't. Maybe not, Sarah replied. But you didn't stop her either. For a long moment, silence hung between them. The wind moved gently through the trees, scattering petals from the rose bush she'd planted the day he was born. Then she said, You'll rebuild. Just don't build on lies this time. Mark nodded, tears welling in his eyes. Mom, do you hate me? Sarah smiled faintly. No. I'm just done protecting people who wouldn't protect me. He exhaled, broken. Then turned and left, the car door closing like a final punctuation. Later that evening, Sarah drove out to the edge of town, to the hill overlooking the coast where she used to sit with her husband after long workdays. She carried the flash drive with her, the one that held every secret, every name, every hidden transaction. The world could burn if it saw what was inside. She stood there for a long while, the sea wind in her hair, before dropping it into the waves below. Some truths didn't need to be shared, only buried where they could harm no one else. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A man's voice, calm, deliberate. "Mrs. Langford," he said. "We saw what you did at the party. You shouldn't have destroyed that drive." Her blood ran cold. "Who is this?" The line crackled. "Let's just say your husband wasn't the only one keeping secrets." The call ended. Sarah looked out at the horizon again, the waves still swallowing the last of the past. But her eyes had changed. Calm, yes, but no longer naive. She took a deep breath and said softly, almost to herself, "Then let them come." The camera would linger here, the ocean stretching endlessly, the sun dipping below the horizon, her silhouette standing tall against it, a woman who'd lost everything except her strength. Thank you for listening. Some betrayals break you. Others build you into someone unshakable. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to comment below. You never know whose story might be told next.